Hi everyone, welcome to the 53rd session of debate today, and I'm Neil here, being your moderator. Niyati here. The topic before the house is this house would not support the publication of political surveys and polls before elections. Niyati will be speaking for proposition. Jayant will be opposition here. We'll give 5 minutes to prepare. We'll start the debate at 8:10 sharp. There will be five minutes per speaker speaking time. Hi, so we'll start with the debate now. First, we're going to have our proposition speaker, Niyati, speaker.
All right. Could you just give me a warning when the last minute starts so I can start concluding?
Okay, perfect. I'll have one tap if that's audible.
Yeah, sure.
Was the tap
Okay, so I'll
audible? I'm just
start in the
confirming.
backward count of
Just a second.
three.
Niyati,
Yeah,
Niyati,
sorry.
Niyati. Was the tap audible?
No.
Okay, I'll write a message on chat for your last minute, right?
Is it all right if I put a timer? Like, just give me a minute. I'll put a timer of
Yeah,
my own
that's
then.
sure. That's sure. That's perfectly fine.
To
Do you
ask
mind
POI, we need to raise arm or we could just speak
directly
in
interrupt the
between.
speaker, directly interrupt the speaker and be
Okay,
like POI, right? Should I
okay.
share my screen?
Thank you.
Should I share the clock on my screen?
Oh, no, it's fine. Okay,
Okay.
so I'll start in the
Are you
backward
ready?
count of three, two, and one. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, and respected opposition. Today, I stand in firm support of the motion that this House would not support the publication of political surveys and polls before elections. In a democracy, elections are meant to reflect the authentic will and decisions of the people, not the influence of strategic numbers, media hype, or manipulated trends. I believe that election polls actively distort the democratic process. Uh, Democracy must be based on an individual's conviction, not herd behavior or media hype. When polls show one party or candidate in the lead, many voters begin to follow the crowd, not their conscience. This is known as the bandwagon effect. People vote for the front runner just because they seem popular. For example, in the 2019 general elections of India, consistent polling in favor of the ruling BJP might have led to undecided voters to swing towards them, believing that the outcome was already determined, and this reduced the
POI.
gen. Yeah, sure.
So my POI question is influence versus information. Don't political manifestos, speech, and rallies also influence voters? Should we ban these two for being persuasive?
That's
I'm
it. Thank
sorry.
you,
Could you
Niti.
speak it? Just say louder. Could you say it again?
Don't political manifestos, speeches, and rallies also influence voters? Should we ban these two for persuasiveness?
Okay, so the thing is that rallies and speeches are meant to influence the people. For example, if you're a party who's competing in the elections, you would start rallies and give speeches so you can influence the public to vote for you. But the polls are not meant to affect people's decisions. They are meant to show the people, like they're meant to allow people to express their own opinion and not manipulate others' decisions. But this is not what's happening with the polls and reports which are published before the elections, because people believe that the outcome is already decided and it would not affect, like it wouldn't affect it if they vote for another party. Now, moving on with our next point, I believe that every vote should count, and democracy depends on participation. When polls predict a landslide victory or a tight loss, some people stay home thinking that my vote won't change anything, and this weakens the democracy and creates false majorities. For example, in the 2017 French presidential elections, low voter turnout was partially blamed upon polls projecting a clear Macron victory, and millions felt disengaged and their voices lost not at only the ballot box but at the polling booth. Publishing polls before an election does not empower citizens. It tells some of them to give up. And voters have the right to accurate information and not manipulated data. polls are oftentimes biased or flawed towards one party, and because they use biased samples, misleading questions, or flawed methods. When
POI.
inaccurate polls are no, I sorry. When inaccurate polls are published widely, they mislead multiple people and distort their expectations. Uh, for example, in the 2016 US elections, most polls predicted that Hillary Clinton would win, while when Donald Trump won. Public trust in media and institutions it was like decreased significantly, and this wasn't just a surprise. This was a crisis of credibility. So why should we allow faulty numbers to shape our entire nation's future? Uh, in conclusion, I do not oppose polling as a tool, but we strongly oppose its publication before elections, where it becomes a weapon of influencers rather than a reflection of opinion. So let's preserve the spirit of democracy by ensuring every vote is based upon conscience and not calculation. Let us stand for an informed choice, equal opportunity, and a meaningful participation. Let's support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Niyati. That was a good speech. We have Jan next, presenting the side of opposition here. Please start with your speech, Jan.
Okay, I'm starting on my self count of three, two, and one. Honorable Chair, respected judges, and my worthy opponents, I stand against the motion that this House wouldn't support the publication of political surveys and polls before elections. Let me begin by asserting this. Democracy thrives on information, and political surveys and opinions are an important part of the information ecosystem. Firstly, they enhance transparency. Pre-election polls provide a real-time pulse of public opinion. They reflect people's views, highlight emerging trends, and ensure that parties and candidates remain accountable to public sentiment. Why hide this democratic mirror from the very people it represents? Secondly, polls empower the voters. By knowing how parties are faring, voters are better informed about the choices and dynamics in an election. It stimulates public debate, sharpens political awareness, and encourages participation, especially among undecided voters who might be motivated by understanding the stakes. Thirdly, they promote responsive politics. When politicians and parties see unfavorable poll numbers, they often adjust their strategies, address public concerns, and engage more meaningfully with the electorate. In the way, polls act as a feedback mechanism, not a final verdict, but a nudge in the right direction. Now, the opposition may argue that polls can manipulate voters, but let's be honest. Shouldn't the solution be better media literacy, not censorship? Sup- Suppressing information because it might influence someone is par- partisanizing and undemocratic. We must trust voters to think critically, not shield from the truth. Moreover, in today's digital age, banning polls will not stop them. It will only drive them underground. This creates room for unregulated, unreliable, and even fake information to
POI.
flourish. Accepted.
So you mentioned engagement. Is it actually engagement if people only follow polls instead of learning about the candidates or the teams?
So, could you repeat once again?
So you said a point about how polls create engagement. Is it actually engagement if people just follow the polls instead of learning about the candidates or the people competing?
It's actually engagement because not mostly the people are not going in the direction of polls. They, instead of going in the direction of poll, they themselves educate themselves about what the party is offering, what the winning party is offering, and what other party is offering, and they maybe get motivated to even give vote instead of staying at home and not voting to others. So it would also create a sense of responsiveness to people that see this party is losing. Why it is losing? Because it is having bad manifestos. Why this party is winning? Because it is having good decisions, good decision making power, and good politics. Okay, so
Yes,
moreover,
Pranav.
in today's digital age, banning polls
I
will
have a
not stop
POI.
them.
Pranav, we'll take your POI
You are
after
just the
your
viewer.
speech. Jayant, please continue.
Yeah, works.
Moreover, in today's digital age, banning polls will not stop them. It will only drive them underground. This creates room for unregulated, unreliable, and even fake information to flourish, which is far more dangerous than a transparent and professionally conducted survey. To conclude, political polls are not threats to democracy, they are expression of it. Let us not stifle public insight in the name of protecting public opinion. Let us uphold the voters' right to know, to question, and to choose freely and fully informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Pranam. That was a good speech. Sorry, thank you, Jen. That was a good speech. I'm really sorry. Niyati, we'll move on with your reply speech for 2 minutes. Please start.
All right, so I'll start in the backward count of three, two, and one. It is clear that pre-election polls are not the innocent and informative tools that the opposition would make us like to believe. Instead, they distort democracy, manipulate voters, and reinforce the status quo. Our argument is not that polling itself is inherently evil, but that it is timing that its timing and influence before the elections create harmful consequences. Let me begin by addressing the central points that the opposition has made. The opposition claims that pre-election polls increase voter engagement, yet this idea overlooks critical facts. Polls often disengage voters rather than inspire them by reducing elections to a popularity contest or a horse race. Voters start following trends instead of policies, and the questions they ask themselves are no longer who do I believe in, but who is most likely to win. This creates a bandwagon effect, as I mentioned previously, and democracy is about informed, authentic participation, not strategic voting or blind alignment
Can we
with
raise
who is the front
POI
runner.
in reply speech?
No, please continue, Niyati.
Okay. The second issue I want to address is the manipulation of public opinion through polls. The opposition has suggested that the polls reflect true public sentiment, but the reality is far more complex. Polls are often biased, misleading, or inaccurate. For example, again, in the 2016 US elections, for example, many polls predicted clearly Clinton win, yet the result was completely different, and the discrepancy shows us that polling failures undermine trust in elections. If people see polls as unreliable, they lose confidence in the political system, undermining democracy as the whole as itself. Uh, Furthermore, the media and polling companies can play a dangerous role in shaping the political narrative. They can amplify certain candidates and drown out voices that aren't getting the same media attention. In effect, they reduce the democracy to a game of
Thank you,
media
Niyati.
manipulation.
Thank
Where,
you, Niyati. Your time
yeah,
concludes now.
sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Jayant, please carry on with your reply speech.
Could you tell me the time limit for reply speech
2 minutes.
again?
2 minutes.
Okay. So I will start on my self count of three, two, and one.
Jayant, you're muted and not audible. Um, you're muted and you're not audible.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yes, so we'll
Sorry
start
for
it
that.
again.
Just to wait a second. Okay. So I may start now.
Yes, you may.
Okay. Honorable Chair, ladies and gentlemen, throughout today's proposition painted political polls as villain, misleading, manipulative, and damaging to democracy. But there's the truth. Polls don't harm democracy, they reflect it. The claims poll influence voters, but when did the influence become a crime in a democracy? By the logic, should we ban speeches, ads, and manifestos too? They argue voters may be misleaded, but if they don't trust voters to think critically, do they truly believe in democracy at will? We believe in educating, not censoring. Their side rests on fear of misinformation, fear of fear of influence, but our side stands on transparency, awareness, and accountability. When did controlling information become more democratic than sharing it? Polls are not predictions, they are pulse check. They encourage participation, push parties to engage, and give voice to people before is decided. In trying to protect democracy, the proposition and ends up shrinking it. And that is something we cannot support. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. We'll be having a question session right now. Pranad, you had a question?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Uh, just a sec. Okay. My first question would be for the proposition side. I'm audible, right? Hello.
Yes, you
Yes.
are, Pranad.
Yeah. Yeah. If voters don't know how the public feels about major issues, how do you expect them to hold politicians accountable in real time while
Could you
banning the
repeat your
polls,
question?
etc.?
Could you repeat your question?
I'm audible, right? Hello.
Yeah, you're
Yes,
audible,
Pranad,
but your
you
voice
are.
is not.
Yeah. Yeah. If voters don't know how the public feels about major issues, how do you expect them to hold politicians accountable in real time while banning the polls, etc.?
Sir, question is how should politicians know about the public's opinion, basically?
To paraphrase his question is basically that if people do not know about major issues, major trends, or major stuff that is going in the country, then how do you expect these people to hold politicians accountable? That is his
Okay, so
question.
first of all, polls are not a means of spreading information to the public. News, basically, news is the way that politicians can spread, uh, what's happening currently to the public instead of using polls, because polls are meant for the public to express their opinion. So even if we ban polls, it wouldn't affect how the public gets to know about what's happening in real time with the politicians, and they can still hold them accountable. For example, if in an election a politician does something that the public doesn't feel is right, they cannot vote for that politician and vote for the other party or other
That's
candidate
it,
instead.
Niyati. Yeah. Thank you, Niyati. Pranad, you had another question for the opposition?
Yeah. Hello. I'm again audible, right? Hello. Yes.
Yes, you are.
Okay. So for opposition, we have seen polls get horribly wrong, like in the Brexit and the 2016 US elections. If they're so unreliable, why should they be allowed to influence millions of voters before an election?
Polls can be wrong, but you know what democracy stands for is transparency, and transparency is our main motto. So giving polls out into public shows that democracy is truly running on the spirit of transparency, and transparency is the sole motto. And as you are saying, in Brexit and the US 2016 elections, the polls were wrong. Actually, they weren't wrong. The swing voters did make a really huge impact on actually Trump's winning and Brexit. If you could search it upon internet, you would be knowing it.
Perfect. Thank you,
Follow
Jen.
up.
Thank you. No, Pranad. Thank you, Jen.
No?
Thank you,
Okay.
Niyati. Yeah, thank you, Pranad. Right. So after reviewing
Um,
the
could
speeches,
could we also have a rebuttal round between the proposition and opposition team?
that was the reply speeches, Jen. The reply
Just a
speeches were
single
meant to do that.
question. Just a single question, please.
I'll entertain questions from both sides then if Niyati is okay. Then yes, yes, Jen, please continue with your question.
Okay. So my question is, if polls cause a bandwagon effect, don't they also show when a ruling party is losing support? Shouldn't voters know that?
Okay, so as I mentioned previously in my main speech, uh, polls also show like the real time support of one team or the other. So if you're going to vote, like if you see that one team is winning and one team is miserably losing, you would think that my opinion doesn't matter anymore, and that particular team, the one who's winning, is gonna win anyways. So you would like vote for the team that's already winning, because you wouldn't like think you would have that mindset that even if I vote, my vote wouldn't matter anyways. For example, like take if like the winning team has 82% and the losing team has 18%. Even if you vote, like there are millions of other people voting, and you would still have that mindset that my vote won't count.
Thank you, Niyati. Thank you, Jayant. Niyati, do you have a question for Jayant?
No, I don't think so. I don't have questions.
Okay, okay, that's perfectly fine. Thank you, Jayant. Thank you, opposition. Thank you, proposition. Thank you, the spectator, Pranav and Ayush. So after reviewing the speeches, the statements, and the arguments put forward by both the sides, the House decides that it would not support the publication of political surveys and polls before elections. Therefore, the proposition wins. Have a clap and congratulations. So for feedback, first of all, I'll go on to the opposition gen. Um, Please keep your POIs very concise and to the point, right? Do not beat around the bush. Directly ask the question. Then, when you're speaking, do not make it a monotonous speech. Add some modulation, articulation in your words. For example, you need to stress out important points. Maybe you said some important points like public sentiments. Just like stress out on those, or say maybe unregulated fake information. So stress out on those parts, so that it creates an impact on when you're giving the speech, right? I could also visibly see that you're seeing and reading your speeches. So I would suggest before a debate, please can you just go through your speeches one, two times, so that even without seeing, you're able to speak confidently. You don't lose your focus, and you used the same argument around 3 to 4 times. So try to get more arguments maybe, and not use repeating arguments for each and every question that you're getting asked. And also, lastly, do not contradict your standing when you're being asked the POI. Do not back down from what you're actually representing. So modulate that into another question, or modulate that into a rebuttal, which you can say to another person. As when Pranad asked you a POI, you actually contradicted your standing that you would not want the publications, right? So that is what is my feedback. Rest speeches were good. The debate was good, and that's it for Jens, right? Any doubts you would want to ask? So it's perfectly fine. I think it was I don't know if it was your first debate or not, but the way you said it, it was perfectly fine. Just incorporate a few points that I've said, and you'll be good to go. Right. Niyati, I have the same feedback for you. You need to stress out on facts. Your speech was really good, as you mentioned different facts. You mentioned BJP, you mentioned US case, you mentioned the France case. So the you just need to stress out on those stuff, and then do not keep the speech monotonous, right? If that makes sense. Rest all perfect. The argumentation was perfect, and that's perfectly fine, right? And that concludes our session for the debate session for today. Congratulations, Niyati, for winning it. Jayant, keep trying again, and definitely you'll win it. Right? Thank you, guys.